around a topic of the month, which allows us to go deeper into a specific theme. Each month, several items are on-produced as overview and technical articles and infographics, but not exclusively. BuildUp also offers the opportunity to host webinars on all the topics related to energy efficiency. More recently, BuildUp has opened the opportunity to distinguished experts in the field to share their knowledge in front of our cameras in the BuildUp Expert Talks. BuildUp shares daily the most relevant events in the field of energy efficiency and renewable energy, but also participates actively in many European events around the year as EPB Center and RIBA Conference, Horizon 2020, Interreg and Cost Action events, Covenant of Mayors, and much more, with the aim of further disseminating the results and helping to create high-quality media content. BuildUp content is updated daily, reaching around 120 new items each month. But BuildUp is not only us. BuildUp is a community, and we invite you to be part of it. By becoming a member, you can contribute uploading your own content and promoting your own news, events, or publications. BuildUp will help you to reach a broader audience through our social media channels and newsletter. It is a pleasure to host today's webinar entitled SmartBuilt4EU Project, the future of buildings in Europe, of smart buildings in Europe. The webinar will share the resulting white papers that have been the base for the strategic research innovation agenda and the policy recommendations that will fit the design of future Horizon Europe calls. Our audience is welcome to send us questions through the platform. These questions will be answered at the end of the presentation in a session with all the project presenters. I leave the floor now to our first speaker, Alain Sarli, Secretary General at ECTP, who will introduce today's agenda and the SmartBuilt4EU project. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Hello, good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for the nice introduction, and I'm very, very pleased as SmartBuilt4EU project coordinator with Nerea Gomez to welcome you to this fifth and final SmartBuilt4EU webinar. We intend indeed today to introduce you to all the outputs and outcomes from SmartBuilt4EU. And we will have indeed a rather dense agenda, which will start with, on my side, with a very quick introduction or reintroduction, reminder probably of SmartBuilt4EU project. But there will be then, of course, a presentation in particular of the very last results, including the strategic research and innovation agenda that has been developed in the context of SmartBuilt4EU, as well as a set of policy recommendations. And we will have, of course, also the opportunity of quite some to have some time for question and answers as well. So, as a very, very quick reminder of the SmartBuilt4EU project, in case SmartBuilt4EU has been a coordinated and support action dedicated indeed to smart buildings and I would say the development and the advertisement around the strategic research, the SRIA, the Smart Readiness Indicator. I'll get back to that point later on. We are indeed in the last months of the project, which lasted for 30 months and will conclude indeed at the end of March. And the main objective indeed has been to support, and that was where indeed the European Commission had a great interest in, to support the emergence of a smart buildings market in Europe. So what fundamentally SmartBuilt4EU has done is really trying to have a current state of play, a view on the current state of play around smart buildings in Europe in terms of innovative technologies and future research and innovation, trying to increase the level of exchange between the various innovators, and there are many of them indeed, implied in the development of technologies for smart buildings, and doing that in some way, nurturing a large stakeholders community in order to promote both, of course, smart buildings, but more particularly as well the Smart Readiness Indicator. So if I try to very, very quickly summarize the main objectives and activities of the project, as I mentioned to you, it was about, indeed, mapping, nurturing, consolidating a smart building innovation community, trying to better identify who are the main actors in the innovation ecosystem, and trying to start referencing and promoting key innovators and innovation in smart buildings. Leveraging, indeed, on this smart building innovation community, we have started to share knowledge, and in particular to have some collaborative work in terms of identifying where we stand right now, what are still the silos we are facing, the gaps, the barriers, and trying to identify altogether future opportunities and best practice for the further uptake of smart building. We have had a focus on trying to promote the experimentation and rollout of the Smart Readiness Indicator. You know that in the 2018 revision of the EPBD, the potential of the Energy Performance of Building Directive, the potential of smart technologies in the building sector has been heavily emphasized. And as part of this focus, the EPBD introduced this concept of Smart Readiness Indicator, which is today a common EU scheme for rating the smart readiness of buildings, not the smartness of buildings, but the smart readiness, indeed, of buildings. Last but not least, indeed, SmartBuilt4EU has developed roadmap and policy recommendations for the future. So if we go to the key results and outcomes, they have here quickly summarized. There have been, in particular, leveraging on the smart building innovation community, the SBEAK. There have been a brochure on smart building EU innovation that summarize indeed what has been achieved through more than 100 collaborative projects throughout Europe, and potentially their success stories as well. We have developed indeed 12 white papers through the identification of 4 task forces. We'll exemplify it very, very quickly in the next slide about it. We have developed a set of outcomes with respect to the SRIA, identifying the co-benefit indicators, which mean that indeed when you deal with the SRIA, you also deal with other benefits in terms of sustainability, durability of the buildings, and so on and so forth, with solution packages and how they fit, of course, with the SRIA. And we have developed a strategic research and innovation agenda and a set of policy recommendations that will be introduced later on this morning. Very quickly, one important work, a key outcome of SmartBuilt4EU has indeed been 12 white papers, which are of course freely available to all of you, developed through 4 task forces, interactions with users, focusing on different topics. So interactions with users, efficient building operation, interactions with the external environment, and cross-cutting issues. And because, of course, those fields or those domains were already quite vast, we decided to split each of them into 3 main parts, which led at the end of the day to the 12 white papers. And in those white papers, they are all structured in a very, very similar way, where we define the overall scope, of course, of the white paper, where we have identified for each of the topics targeted by each white paper the main barriers, what are the fundamental drivers, and what are, of course, the research and innovation gaps. And even those gaps, we have divided them into several categories. The 3 first ones, the R&D, the demo, and the scaling up and industrialization, has fundamentally fed the development of the strategic research and innovation agenda. where, of course, all the aspects of regulation, certification, standardization, among others, have largely fed the policy recommendation that we have developed. And that will be, of course, of interest to the European Commission, to the member states, and also to all the building managers and owners. I would like just to conclude this very, very quick introduction with a reminder, or maybe an information to some of you about our SmartBuilt4EU final conference that will take place indeed in Brussels. It's co-organized by us and the European Commission on the 23rd of March, this month, from 9 to 4 p.m. And indeed, that will be a physical event with potential, of course, to follow it online as well. But I really invite you to join us physically if you can do so, because this is probably the best way to have really tangible and strong interactions and exchanges between all of us. So you can register indeed using this QR code. One thing which is just to give you a very quick idea of what will be indeed the agenda of this final conference. It will be a mix of quite a lot of information in the morning provided in an opening session by the European Commission in terms of the policy framework and the institutional support and initiatives, and all the initiatives launched sometimes with our support by the European Commission. Then we will have quite a nice presentation of many projects pitching about what they are doing, what they are going to do, what are their main objectives, and with the opportunity, of course, to have panel sessions as well with all those projects. And in the afternoon, you will have a presentation on future perspectives from the smart buildings in Europe. Once again, summarizing the SRIA and the policy recommendation, but also what's going next, I would say, beyond the end of SmartBuilt4EU, which is, as I remind to you, which is going to end at the end of this month. So I really invite you to register to this conference. That will be a full-fledged opportunity to have really deep and tangible exchanges and interactions with many people from the European Commission and different units in DG Energy, as well as the SRIA agency, and with many actors really involved in research and innovation in smart buildings. So thank you very much for your attention, and that's now my great pleasure to give the floor to Birgit for the next presentation and the introduction to the strategic research and innovation agenda that has been developed in SmartBuilt4EU. So Birgit, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alain, and good morning, everyone. I'm Birgit van der Velde from Vito, and I will guide you through the strategic research and innovation agenda that is a deliverable of the SmartBuilt4EU project. I will quickly explain you how we've developed this and which are the topics to focus on according to our research. So as Alain already mentioned, we didn't start from scratch. We were able to build upon the work that was done within the task forces that produced our white papers. As mentioned, there were 4 task forces and they each produced 3 white papers. Out of these white papers, several gaps were identified, but I think there were about 180 gaps. Of course, those could not all be included in the strategic research and innovation agenda. So we had a look at all those 180 something gaps, tried to see if there were recurrent topics, and then made out of those list a selection of 10 priorities to further work on. This list has been discussed with the relevant stakeholders to make sure that the most important ones were certainly included into our research agenda. The topics covered are listed here. The first one are about interoperability. The first one is on interoperability in buildings itself, where secondly, we're also going to look outside between buildings itself, so for the grid flexibility. Then there's a bit more on the legal policy side to look for innovative business models and having issues tested in a close to real world setting, so with testing facilities and living labs, regulatory sandboxes and the like. Then we look a bit broader besides only energy and look at other co-benefits that can be useful for both homeowners, building users, and also look at the entire life cycle environmental impact. So not only operational phase, not only energy use, but the whole life cycle, all impacts included. As smart buildings often rely on data, it's important that we gather enough data, but that we also make use of the data that are there. And part of gaining enough data is to make sure that there's enough public awareness on the benefits of such smart buildings, why these data are used, and why it's important to gather them. But as is often the case, collecting data comes with issues on data privacy and cybersecurity, so that's also included. And then the last topic covered is how this research supports further policy developments, and that then also links to the next presentation on the policy recommendation. So as said, the priorities that we identified are linked to the topics I just introduced. You see them here. It's on standardization for interoperable products, standards and business models for connecting the smart buildings to the external environment, innovation in products and related business models for smart buildings, testing facilities, benchmarking and living labs for integrated analysis and demonstration, a better understanding of the co-benefits, advances in products and services to improve lifecycle environmental impacts, making better use of the data, and then R&I for supporting increased public awareness, some end user acceptance and training of the workforce, then data privacy and cybersecurity, and then the R&I to support policy developments. For each of those priorities, several actions have been identified. So really looking into what is needed on the field, what is needed in terms of research, where do we need to put our money at to see what needs to be further looked into to make sure that smart buildings are being spread over Europe. And we'll now run through all of the 10 priorities and look at the actions that are defined there. For the first one, standardization for interoperable products, we see that while buildings and homes are becoming smarter, because there are many more connected devices and sensors. These all have the ability to make the life of occupants more comfortable, more efficient and automated, and then in the same time saving money, time and energy. But therefore, all the systems in a smart house need to work together. And therefore, a standardization is needed for a product so they can all talk to each other and work together. And important there is that it can be done over different vendors. So not if you have one smart application that all your other smart services need to come from the same supplier, but that they're able to talk to each other across vendors. Therefore, semantics is really important, which is illustrated in the actions there by developing a methodology for assessing of semantic interoperability, reference implementation for assessment of such semantic interoperability, also a support program that all stakeholders are aware of the benefits of such standardization and the dangers of not having one. A potential instrument there could be an interoperability label. And of course, it's important that the services that can talk to each other are easily available. So therefore also the marketplace for interoperability services and user-friendly software tools is listed as a key action. And then the last action is a citizen lab initiative about interoperability to quickly show the benefits. So it's important that all of our smart services can interrelate so they can together become smarter, one-on-one becomes three then. Yeah, the benefits of such settings should be made aware. Our second priority is on the flexibility towards the grid. There we see that in demand supply optimization, it's already quite ongoing in a more industrial setting, but we see that buildings, there are a lot of buildings, but they all have a rather small amount of flexibility to offer to the grid. We know that with importing renewable energy into the grid, as they are a bit intermittent and hardly predictable, it's key to have enough flexibility into the grid, and all these smart buildings can offer some flexibility, but only small amounts. So there it's really important that over the grid, all buildings provide their data and enough knowledge is behind it so that they can all interrelate to act as a flexibility supplier to the grid. Therefore, the actions defined are to harmonize the definition of the roles and responsibilities for actors involved in the energy flexibility. So who does what, who is responsible for what. A regulation for the flexibility market should be in place. Again, we're looking at certification scheme at EU level, looking into how this flexibility is mentioned, or a certification to say this building provides such level of flexibility. Also important is to take into account our end users, as they are a new and valuable partner in the energy flexibility ecosystem of the future. If our house owners need to change their behavior by, let's say, charging their electrical vehicle only at night, or they need to be made aware of their influence to the system. The fifth action listed there is on interoperable data exchange environments to provide power flexibility to the grid. And then the second action is on ready to service and ready to grid buildings. The third priority is on innovation in products and related business models. Building owners, and in particular building users, are exploring different energy saving alternatives, but at the same time they want to keep the comfort level at the same standard for the well-being of the building users to make sure that it's not compromised. Therefore, informed decisions need to be made. We sort of see an evolution towards building as a service. And there are already some breakthroughs on a more technological level, but we see that the business models need to be a bit more developed to make sure that everybody understands the benefits of such new systems. Therefore, the actions identified are to develop new concepts and solutions for occupant-centric buildings, develop and design participatory business model, and also provide a legal framework for the deployment of universal digital infrastructure on an EU level. The fourth priority is on testing facilities, benchmarking, and living labs for integrated analysis and demonstration of smart buildings. We know that smart buildings offer several benefits for different stakeholders due to their innovative methodologies, but to bridge these innovation gaps, we need to test the smart building technologies, and due to their nature, it's not something that can just be done behind the desk. You really need to go into a realistic setting of real buildings to see how they interrelate, how they interact, how all the services within one building interact. So therefore, living labs, testing facilities are needed on different scales for different combinations of services. And therefore, one of the actions identified here is to create an EU strategy for physical testing facilities that support the actual testing of innovation on smart buildings. The second action identified is to create a program of living labs for higher TRL application of smart buildings to be tested tested in realistic condition, and also develop testing protocols, benchmarks, and reporting standards so that it's more easily to compare outcomes of one living lab and another testing facility to make sure that most things are taken into account and compared in a similar manner. The fifth priority is on understanding the potential co-benefits. That's an important one in case of user experience to get everybody along with the benefits of smart buildings, because now it's often only looked at from, yeah, we might save energy and for the flexibility it's okay, but we need to make sure that they know it's also about their comfort, about their the environmental quality, for example. It's not only energy, that there's a lot of benefits, potential benefits for the users. We see that now there are already several building certification schemes that look quite broad, but we feel that there's a quantification method needed for non-energy benefits. That's the first action in this priority. Also there, it should be on data-driven smart building indicators, and we should be able to present also these co-benefits in business models. And therefore, a qualitative method development and awareness raising action is needed to ensure that a wider implementation of the smart technology can take place without comfort being diminished. The sixth priorities is on advances in products, services, and decision support methods to improve the life cycle environmental impacts of buildings. We see now that looking at impacts, often most attention goes to the operational phase of the building and also mainly on energy use. The use of fossil fuels for heating and cooling is by far the most researched. But with the new types of buildings, like the newly zero energy buildings, we see that the amount of impact shifts a bit from the operational phase to other phases, as the energy use, energy consumption during the building's operational phase, it lowers at nearly zero energy. So we also need to take into account all other life cycle phases.
Birgit, sorry, we cannot hear you anymore. Can you hear us?
Yeah, hi Birgit. Check your mute and unmute, because we have lost you. Can you talk now to see if you are online? Birgit, can you talk to see if you are online again? No, we don't hear you. We have lost you from 1 second to the other. You can hear us? Yes? Let's Yeah. Birgit, Nerea, if you're okay, we can go to Karin and pick up in Birgit when she tries to.
Hello, I'm back. There was apparently a connection
yes, perfect.
issue.
Sorry,
Sorry
back.
for that. I
No,
couldn't
it's
change
okay.
slides anymore, and the sounds changed. So I don't know where the issue was. I hope
okay.
you were able to follow until priority 6. Otherwise, I would need to recap on that.
We were there.
Okay. It was really weird. The sound got lost, but let's continue with priority 7 on making better use of the data. As mentioned, achieving building performance as foreseen in the design stage is a recognized challenge. We can make buildings as smart and as well working as we want on paper, but in practice, we need to see that it all works, and often theirs is still a challenge. And we noticed that the user friendliness of installation is often perceived as an issue with building users. Building monitoring, control, and real-time data can play an important role in reducing the performance gap, but then we need to make sure that enough data are available and that they are also used to their full extent. Data-driven approaches face a significant number of challenges to be efficient, such as the data collection, harmonization of protocols, and further development of tools, expansion of the digital twin concept, and showcasing.
Hi, Birgit. We have the same problem again. Hello, do you hear me? We have the same problem again, Birgit. You're off again. I will really propose to pass to Karin because your voice come and go. So I don't know if we have Karin there.
Yes.
Yes. Hello, Karin. Birgit, it's okay for you if we go to Karin and we pick up some of your proposal in the Q&A session? Sorry for that, but you are really getting completely muted for audience.
All right, then let's go. So
Okay,
sorry
thank
for
you,
those
Karin.
technical issues.
Yes.
I will now present the policy recommendations that have been developed by the project and will be finalized in the coming weeks. These recommendations are based upon the work done with the 4 task forces of the Smart Building Innovation Community from February 2021 to July 2022, as already presented by Alain. So how did we proceed? As Birgit mentioned already, each white paper investigated a specific topic and identified barriers and drivers related to that topic. We then collectively proposed research and innovation actions to be carried out to address these barriers. The actions that were related to R&D, demonstrations, scaling up, have been taken up in the strategic research and innovation agenda, which Birgit just tried to present. While those related to regulation, certification, standardization have been used to draft the policy recommendation. And as you will see, our recommendations are very complementary of the SRIA. Our recommendations cover 10 topics of various nature, including the Smart Readiness Indicator, of course, but also data governance, sandboxes, interoperability, and upskilling. I will now detail these 10 recommendations and proposed actions. Please pay attention, as you will be asked at the end of the session to rate the recommendation with Slido. And it would also be great to get your feedback in the Q&A session in case you believe that we overlooked key topics. So policy recommendation number 1 is to define clear rules at EU level for smart buildings, data governance, to build trust and enable new business models. It is about data access, ownership, privacy, usage rights, and consents. It supports the new developments initiated by the revision of the EPBD on data collection and data management procedures for buildings, and also initiated by the Data Governance Act on governance framework and trusted third parties. It also relates to the creation of a common European data space, potentially for the building sector. Our second recommendation is to develop and enforce an open data culture to improve knowledge sharing and replication on building performances. It includes developing a framework and platform to enable and promote data access and data sharing in line with our first recommendation, but also including open source requirements in regulation to avoid vendor lock-in and promote interoperability. We then looked into how to support the smartening of the building stock at national scale through stricter building codes with clear long-term objectives and incentives. A key action is to impose a minimum level of smartness for new and renovated buildings, and in the longer term to enforce the adoption of the SRIA in building permitting processes in the measures to incentivize the specifications of a minimum set of smart building components should also be implemented in the meantime. As regulations take time to evolve, regulatory sandboxes should be enabled to test and validate new concepts and business models. This includes better communicating on how to request sandboxes, but also facilitating the development and access to demo spaces like living labs and scaled demonstrators. The labeling of smart devices and building certifications have an instrumental role to play in making a convincing case for building smartness by making more visible the benefits for building owners, managers, and occupants. Third-party certified labeling for smart building devices should be in line with the energy labeling and include SRI service levels or smartness information, as well as information on interoperability, cybersecurity, and data privacy. Second point, the evaluation methods of benefits should be standardized and include co-benefits valorization. By co-benefits, we mean comfort, convenience, health, well-being, accessibility, and finally, green, smart, and user-centric certifications should be developed based on existing ones, such as LEED, PREEM, well, and ready to service. Just trying to change slides. Oh, yes. Policy recommendations number 6 is about the evolution of building certificates towards a more dynamic evaluation of performances, taking into account the contribution from smart technologies, addressing not only energy performance, but also comfort, health, environmental impact, and flexibility potential. This is strongly related to the building digital logbook, on how this logbook could bring together the various existing policy-oriented certificates and other private schemes, but also include dynamic data from smart meters, for instance. We also included 2 actions on making the case and raising awareness on the importance of including dynamic data in such certificates. More specifically about the Smart Readiness Indicator, its implementation in all member states should be supported based on a harmonized common EU calculation methodology. This implies technical and financial support, a more detailed common EU SRI framework, and the establishment of appropriate monitoring, evaluation, and enforcement framework in the member states. Interoperability among building systems and with the grid is something that we have discussed a lot with our task forces. The rollout of the interoperability of smart solutions and flexibility of smart buildings should be supported through data-driven standards and regulation with common EU principles for interoperability integration for the development of interoperable data management framework and certification. Our second to last, almost finished, recommendation is on the integration of smartness and user-centric requirements in public procurement, which should be green and pro-innovation, and which should set the example for other types of procurement. Externalities should be better managed by using LCA approaches. Social impacts and benefits, such as user satisfaction, should be carefully taken into account along the building life cycle, and a minimum level of smartness should be requested, while at the same time developing requirements for data management and protection. Last but not least, it is critical to support upskilling related to digitalization, cybersecurity, open standards, lifecycle approaches, and performance-based approaches, relying on closer academic and industrial cooperation. First, by improving transparency and efficiency of higher education and vocational education training related to smart buildings. And secondly, by making continuous training compulsory. For instance, could be done through training clauses in public procurement. Training should also be more accessible for SMEs, and the progress of this should be monitored through government bodies. Right. I hope that you survived this overview. I now suggest that we go to Slido and get your opinion on what are the priorities within this list. So you can find the Slido code on this slide. You also have a QR code that you can scan directly. So please go to Slido and rate the 10 priorities. And please also put in the chat your suggestion to improve this recommendation and any question you may have. Thanks a lot for your attention. So I suggest we take a few minutes, let's say 3-4 minutes for Slido, and then Toka will moderate our Q&A session.
Perhaps we can read the Slido so everybody can be on the same page. So the SmartBuilt4EU project is asking us to rate the policy recommendations from 1 as most important to 10 less important according to their relative importance. The first one will be encourage member states to set up national or local regulation supporting the smartening of the building stock through stricter building codes with clear long-term objectives and incentives. Second one, develop and enforce an open data culture to improve knowledge sharing on building performance and replication. Third one, enable regulatory sandboxes to test new concepts and business models and facilitate access to demo spaces. Fourth one, define clear rules at EU level for smart buildings data governance to build trust and enable new business models. Fifth one, support the rollout of interoperability of smart solutions and flexibility of smart buildings through data-driven standards and regulation. Sixth one, have building certificates evolve towards a more dynamic evaluation of performances, taking into account contribution from smart technologies, addressing not only energy performance, but also comfort, health, environmental impact, and flexibility potential. 7, support the implementation of the Smart Readiness Indicator, SRIA, in all member states based on a harmonized common European calculation methodology. 8, make a convincing case for building smartness, make visible and easy to understand the benefits of smartness for building owners, managers, and occupants through labeling of devices and building certification. 8, integrate smartness and user-centric requirements in green and pro-innovation public procurement. And finally, support upskilling related to digitalization, cybersecurity, open standards, lifecycle analysis, LCA, and performance-based approaches, relying on closer academic industrial cooperation. So, very interesting.
Thank you very much. Thank you for going through everything. So we still have a couple of participants that are ranking the the priorities. So yeah, let's wait 1 or 2 more minutes. And then we can start with the Q&A. All right, well, thanks a lot. You can still continue ranking the priorities, but I suggest that we now move to the Q&A session, which will be moderated by Toka Khalifa from R2M Solution. Toka, the floor is yours.
Yes. Can you see me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Don't see
This is
your camera. We hear you, but we don't see your camera. If it's open, we don't see you yet.
Yeah,
Now,
I think
perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Toka Khalifa from R2M Solution. I'm happy to be moderating today's Q&A sessions. So please send us your questions to the question box. For the moment, I see that we don't have questions from the audience. So until we receive a few questions on my side, I would like to ask Karen, to which extent do these policy recommendations reflect the view of experts and innovators from the smart building sector?
Yeah, thanks, Toka. So as we presented in several of our presentations, the strategic and research and innovation agenda and the policy recommendation are based on the white paper that were written on 12 different topics related to smart buildings. And in total, we have, I think, if I remember correctly, more than 190 persons that contributed to these white papers, either by providing inputs during our task forces, workshops, and brainstorming session, or by helping to write and review the white papers. Contributors include members of the SmartBuilt4EU consortium, of our expert board, but mostly volunteers from the smart building innovation community, and a large part of these volunteers are involved in EU-funded projects. So we identified 31 projects that provided inputs within the task force's activities, but we also have other experts, including from the industries that participated. So overall, I think we can consider it has been rather representative of the view of the sector.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And another question we have is, V2 has developed the impact and adoption of SRI buildings. How much your results could be adopted by the industry, or do you consider these results as a baseline to work over in future? So I think if Alan and Karen can answer the question.
Can you repeat, Toka, the question, please?
Yes, for sure. V2 has developed the impact and adoption of SRI in buildings. How much your results could be adopted by industry, or do you consider these results as a baseline to work over in future?
Would there rather be a question for Birgit if she's back?
Okay.
I don't know if she recovered her sound.
I'm not sure as well. Okay, so we can move to the other question. What's the difference between smart readiness and smartness? Why these terms?
Alain, you want me to take it, or do you want to answer this question? No.
Yeah, bring it up because
looks like everybody lost the sound. I know Hala is here.
Can you hear us, Alan? You cannot switch on your microphone. Are you sure that you cannot unmute it yourself? No. Okay.
It's the day of the technical issues today.
I'm back to live.
Welcome back, Hala.
Been trying several times to switch on my microphone, but it was impossible. Even
That's
before, even at the time of your previous previous question. Okay, maybe sure. I can give a very quick answer because I don't know if Birgit is back with us. I can give a very quick answer on the previous question. The strategic research and innovation agenda is interesting according to a twofold viewpoint. The first one is that some actions that have been identified in the strategic research and innovation agenda are short-term actions, which can be indeed implemented directly by industry actions and initiatives, or by specific funding at level of member states or the European Commission, considering, for instance, typical example, just like LIFE project or project that are indeed funded for applications of the new technologies and innovation on tangible demonstrators and on the market. And some others, which are more, I would say, so those short-term actions are rather, I would say, from now up to 2 years. Then we have middle term up to 5 years, and long-term actions, which will rather indeed potentially feed future topics and goals at level of the Horizon Europe framework program, or could feed as well, of course, if this is of interest to specific member states, some transnational initiatives and goals funded by different member states. So this is the difference between the fact that, well, you have short, middle, and long-term indeed actions in the SRIA. And Toka, can you repeat the last question? The very last.
Yes, sure. What's the difference between smart readiness and smartness, and why did you choose these terms?
Okay, good question. With respect to the second question, I can't really answer. The name Smart Readiness Indicator indeed has been identified by the European Commission at the time when they really start the preliminary brainstorming on what should be indeed the Smart Readiness Indicator and how it could be integrated at the future Common EU scheme in the revised EPBD. As you know, the EPBD is there is a current EPBD recast, which is still under discussion in the trilogue between the European Commission, the Parliament, and the Member States. Then what is the difference between smartness and smart readiness? Fundamentally, and to make it very short, and to give you an explanation, the smartness of a building will be indeed the way the building or the house is going to be able to interpret data and react according to different stimulations, I would say. Would it be from the various systems and equipments of the building? Would it be stimulation coming from the end users, from the building managers, and so on and so forth? To be able to have, and fundamentally, this smartness is going to rely on many future software development, and in particular, including probably integration of artificial intelligence. To do so, you need, of course, to have access to many data. the fact that you are smart ready is indeed kind of a classification of your capacity at the building to indeed provide, manage, and provide those data that will be further collected, integrated, and in some way computerized by different advanced AI-based software. So smart readiness means you are indeed in a capacity to provide all the data required so that thanks to advanced software, you can become smart in the future. And so that's the difference between smart readiness and smartness. So the smart readiness indicator is not per se characterizing or making a building smarter. It gives you a very important indication on the capacity of a building to become smarter in the future. Hope this reasonably answered to your question. The term smart readiness indicator, well, the indicator refers indeed to the set of indicators that have been identified and categorized according to different areas and domains covering the buildings and its use.
Perfect, thank you, Alan. Another question is, do you think there is any key element missing in the SRIA or the policy recommendations? I think this question can be answered.
I think this was also a question for the audience.
Yes, exactly, I would say that,
if anything was missing.
Yes, as Karin mentioned, I do believe that over the SmartBuilt4EU project, we have done quite a comprehensive survey of the existing technologies or the innovating technology that are very, very soon getting to the market. But we have also identified and shared many knowledge with our stakeholders. Karin referred to the fact that, roughly speaking, the SRIA and the policy recommendations have been leveraging on suggestions, ideas, remarks, comments from nearly 120 people. And also we have shared those SRIA and policy recommendations with our smart building innovation community. And we received quite a bunch of comments as well. So we believe that covering, if not all, largely most of the key action that have to be undertaken in the near future or maybe later on in terms of future technologies to develop smart buildings. But we are still interested, of course, of potential feedback. We may have some through some additional ideas, in particular the priorities through the Slido. And everyone is, of course, very welcome to provide with some specific topic that we may have overlooked in the course of this exercise of and the policy recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Alan. For now, we don't have any more questions. So do you wait like a few minutes, or?
Which is not much.
Yeah.
Again, we have to conclude.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, well, thank you very much to all of you for having joined this session, and I'm very sorry for the technical issues we have had today. I'm sorry, of course, for Brigitte that couldn't finish her presentation, but I would like to take this opportunity to remind you that on March 23rd, we will have our, the SmartBuilt4EU final conference, and the Strategic Research Innovation Agenda will be presented there too. As Alan mentioned at the beginning, this conference will be held in Brussels, so all of you are invited. You can still register to join us on site, or if not possible, online. And just to conclude, I would like to thank all the speakers and, of course, the BuildUp team for having hosted this session. So thank you very much to all of you. I think it has been a very fruitful session, and hope to see you the 23rd March here in Brussels. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.